The car curved around the gravel path, winding through golden hills and ancient sycamores before stopping in front of the grand entrance. Ashpine Manor stood tall, wrapped in ivy and the soft glow of late afternoon sun. It looked exactly like the photos, private, serene, and impossibly luxurious. Jonas Hayes stepped out, stretching after the long drive. The estate loomed behind him like something out of a film, polished mahogany doors, vintage lanterns lining the stone steps, and a quiet stillness in the air that spoke of solitude. It was perfect. It was everything he needed. For the first time in months, he exhaled. This was supposed to be his gift to his parents, a surprise. A way to reconnect, to smooth over the awkward silences that had deepened since he moved out and made a name for himself in the tech world. Jonas had rented the estate for a full week. No expense spared. Private chef, in-house spa, an entire wine cellar to themselves. Just him, his mother, and his father. Time to talk. Heal. Relearn each other. He smiled as he approached the door. Maybe this time it would be different. But the second he stepped inside, that hope shattered. The soft clinking of wine glasses. The thrum of loud conversation. Laughter, too loud, too familiar. He froze. The living room was packed. Not with his parents, but with strangers. At least a dozen. Men in sun-faded polos, women in oversized sunglasses and loud perfume. The scent of grilled food wafted in from the open kitchen. Someone had turned on music, something retro and obnoxious. And then he heard it. I swear, Jonas just presses buttons all day and calls it work, his father chuckled. The kid made a fortune selling air. Roars of laughter. You're not kidding, someone added. Back in our day, a man used his hands, not a damn mouse. More laughter. Jonas stepped forward, stunned. His mother caught sight of him first. Oh, sweetheart. She called out, wine glass in hand. You're early. He blinked. Who are all these people? She waved dismissively. Just friends from the neighborhood. A few old co-workers of your father's. Don't be dramatic. His father turned and raised a glass. They couldn't believe you rented this whole place for us. Thought we were bluffing. Someone nudged him. The kid's a genius, huh? Living the dream. Jonas didn't answer. He looked around slowly. These weren't just acquaintances, they were guests. Bags piled in the hall, drinks half finished on side tables, someone's kid tracking dirt across the rug. He had paid for exclusivity. Privacy. A week with his parents. Instead, it was a house party. And he hadn't even been asked. He tried to keep it together, retreating to the upstairs suite. The view from the balcony overlooked the estate's private vineyards, golden under the setting sun. It should have been calming. But downstairs, the laughter continued. Every year, every family gathering, it was the same story. Jonas, the soft one. The indoor kid. The one who didn't know what real work looked like. His father ran a successful contracting company. His uncles worked with their hands. Jonas? Jonas coded. He built systems. He solved billion-dollar problems using lines of logic. And yet, he'd never been enough for them. Even after founding his own startup. Even after his face landed on Forbes 30 Under 30. He was still just the guy with the screens. He pulled out his phone. Checked the villa's policies. He had paid for 6 guests, max. He counted 17 names on the visitor list his mother had casually jotted on a notepad downstairs. All of them uninvited. All of them assuming this was their luxury escape. And he was the one footing the bill. He refreshed the invoice. New charges. Overages for occupancy, amenities, food, and private staffing. Final cost, $73,200. He felt something snap. He opened his message thread with the estate manager. Typed a few clear instructions. Then hit send. He tucked the phone away and leaned on the balcony railing. The sun dipped below the hills. And he waited. It didn't take long. Downstairs, his mother's voice rang out sharply. What is this? He walked to the top of the stairs, watching as she stared at her phone in horror. His father came over, frowning, snatching it from her hand. What's wrong now? His mother whispered, it's the invoice. Jonas, he just. Jonas descended the stairs calmly, each step measured. What's the matter? He asked, tone neutral. His father looked up, face flushing. It says we owe over $70,000. For this week. That's right. You knew they charge extra for guests? His voice was rising. Jonas nodded. Of course I did. His mother was pale. "Why would you let that happen? Why would you invite half the city without asking me?" The room was quiet now. The guests looked between them, uncomfortable. Someone set down their wine. Another fumbled for their purse. His father's jaw twitched. "This is insane." "No," Jonas said, crossing his arms. "What's insane is mocking me while eating my food, drinking my wine, and inviting a dozen freeloaders into a villa I paid for. We're family," his mother snapped, eyes wide. "You don't do this to your family." Jonas gave a cold smile. "Then maybe family shouldn't treat me like an ATM." His father growled, "So what now? You expect everyone to just pay their share? That would be the grown-up thing to do, wouldn't it?" Jonas replied. "It's roughly $4,300 per person. Should be easy for all these real workers, right?" No one spoke. Then Jonas added, "Actually, don't worry about it." Relief briefly washed over his mother's face. "I canceled the booking," he said. "You all have until noon tomorrow to vacate. I've rebooked the estate under my name, for myself." His father gawked at him. "You can't do that." "I just did." His mother's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. You left us nowhere to go." Jonas shrugged. "Guess you should have asked before assuming." He turned, grabbing a whiskey from the bar and walking toward the back patio. "Better start packing." Clocks ticking. Behind him, silence reigned. For once, he was the one in control. And it felt incredible. By morning, the atmosphere in Ashpine Manor had shifted from jovial to frantic. The once bustling kitchen was silent. The buffet trays stood half full and cold, plates left abandoned on marble counters. The fire in the living room had gone out. Guests paced around nervously with phones pressed to their ears, whispering into voicemails, searching for last-minute hotel rooms that didn't exist. Jonas sat calmly on the terrace, coffee in hand, watching the sky turn from lavender to pale blue. The breeze carried the scent of distant vineyards, and for the first time, he enjoyed the sound of nothing. No one dared approach him at first. But his mother broke the silence. She stood at the threshold of the patio, arms crossed over her chest, wrapped in a robe far too expensive for someone who claimed he was just lucky. "You made your point," she said curtly. Jonas didn't look at her. "Did I? You've embarrassed your father. You've humiliated us in front of friends we've known for decades." "Sounds like a you problem," he said, sipping his coffee. "Jonas, please," she said, her tone softening, defaulting to the voice she always used when she wanted something. "This has gone too far." He finally met her gaze. "What exactly is too far? You mocking my job in front of strangers? You inviting 12 people into a space meant for 3 without asking me? Or is it that, for once, you don't get to walk away without consequences?" She flinched but didn't retreat. "We're your parents. Families argue, they say stupid things." "No," Jonas cut in. "You say stupid things. I stay silent and pay the bill." His father appeared behind her then, face tight with fury. "This isn't about the damn money. It's about respect." Jonas laughed. "Is that what this is now? Because last night, you couldn't stop laughing at how I stare at screens all day. That respect?" His father's voice rose. "It was a joke." "No," Jonas said flatly, standing now, setting the coffee cup down with precision. "It's not a joke when you've said it for 15 years. It's not a joke when you made me feel like a failure every time I chose a different path." His father looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. "So now what?" his mother asked. "You're going to kick us out? Leave us stranded like we're strangers?" "You left me stranded a long time ago," Jonas said. "When I needed your approval. When I needed your respect. And all I got was backhanded compliments and rolled eyes." A beat of silence stretched between them. "Let's talk to the estate manager," his mother tried. "We'll fix this. We'll pay something. Just cancel the eviction." "I didn't file an eviction," Jonas said coolly. "I just changed the reservation. The staff has orders. Noon. Keys returned. Property vacated. Simple." Behind his parents, one of the guests poked his head in. There's nowhere to stay. All the hotels are booked. The nearest one is 45 miles away and triple priced." "Sounds rough," Jonas said with a nod. "Maybe next time, you all won't invite yourselves to someone else's vacation." "You think this is funny?" his father growled. Jonas stared him down. "No. I think this is fair." The next few hours were chaos. Guests scrambled to repack their belongings. Someone tripped over a suitcase. One man begged Jonas for leniency, saying he hadn't realized Jonas wasn't part of the plan. A woman tried to offer him cash, $500 in crumpled bills, for any chance of staying. No, Jonas said simply, again and again. This isn't a hostel. And I'm not your son. By 11:50 a.m., the once luxurious manor resembled a storm-struck village. The guests filed out one by one, dragging rolling bags across the gravel, sweat beading on their foreheads under the midday sun. Some muttered. Others glared. But none dared challenge him again. And then it was just his parents, standing in the grand foyer. His mother looked around as if still hoping someone might intervene. His father, shoulders slumped slightly, held their suitcase like a soldier who'd lost a battle he didn't think he had to fight. This is petty, his father said. Jonas tilted his head. No. This is me drawing a line. You'll regret this, his mother said softly. Maybe, Jonas said. But not today. He turned and walked toward the door. They followed, slowly. At the steps, his mother paused. You can't just cut us out forever. Jonas didn't answer. His father spoke again. We raised you. You tolerated me, Jonas corrected. You never respected me. You made sure I knew I didn't measure up, and now you don't measure into my peace. Then this is how it ends? His mother whispered. Like this? Jonas looked out at the vineyards beyond, the sun spilling gold over the hills. No, he said. This is how it finally begins. And with that, he stepped back into the manor and shut the door. He sat on the velvet couch in the now empty living room, silence wrapping around him like a warm blanket. The laughter was gone. The noise. The judgment. The freeloading. Gone. He poured a glass of aged scotch from the private bar, leaned back, and savored the stillness. The phone buzzed. Mom, we're outside. It's 104 degrees. Please. Ignored. Dad, you better fix this. We won't forget what you did. Deleted. He blocked the numbers. The peace that followed was immediate, like a fog lifting. They'd be fine. They'd survive. But not on his back anymore. The next morning, Jonas awoke to a house drenched in silence. Not the uneasy, stiff silence of tension, but a clean, satisfying kind. The silence of peace. Of space. Of boundaries held firm. He stretched in bed, sunlight spilling across the terracotta floors of the master suite. No suitcases blocking the hallway. No voices echoing off the marble staircase. No scent of someone else's cologne. Just him. And the house. Finally. He moved through Ashpine Manor with ease, barefoot, coffee in hand, the day ahead open and unclaimed. He didn't have to check his phone. But old habits die hard. 23 missed calls. 12 voicemails. 7 new texts. All from the same 2 senders. He sat on the veranda, overlooking the now empty driveway, and began reading. Not out of curiosity, but out of duty. Closure, perhaps. Mom, 7:12 p.m. last night. We've found a motel. It's not clean. It smells like wet carpet. This is cruel, Jonas. We raised you. Dad, 7:47 p.m. Don't think this is over. You humiliated us. We'll talk when you've cooled down. Mom, 10:21 p.m. You've really hurt us. We're your parents. You don't treat family like this. Dad, 6:12 a.m. You've forgotten who you are. Where you came from. Don't forget we made you. Jonas exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the horizon. For a second, he almost felt it, the familiar pull of guilt, the weight of responsibility twisting itself around his chest like a vine. But this time, the feeling passed. He didn't owe them his peace just because they shared his last name. And then came the message that made his blood run cold. Boss, 8:36 a.m. Hey, just checking in. Your parents called the office this morning. Jonas sat up straight, heart pounding. Boss, continued. Said they're worried about you. Talked about erratic behavior. Wanted to make sure you're mentally fit. I told them we don't disclose personal matters. But maybe give them a heads up not to call here again? Jonas read the message twice. 3 times. They had called his job. His job. That line, clearly drawn, painfully reinforced, had not only been crossed. It had been bulldozed. He felt something cold settle in his chest. Not sadness. Not betrayal. Resolve. He opened his messages. Me Mom and Dad. You crossed a line. Do not ever call my workplace again. Mom, typing. We were just trying to help. Me. No, you were trying to punish me for saying no. You were trying to ruin my livelihood because I stopped funding yours. Dad. Don't be dramatic. Me. Watch me. And just like that, he blocked them. Every number. Every email. Every account. Deleted. Silenced. Gone. No more calls at midnight. No more guilt-wrapped requests. No more "we raised you" speeches. No more strings. A month passed. Jonas stayed at Ashpine Manor for 2 more weeks, using the silence to rebuild something inside himself. He cooked for himself. He painted again. He went for hikes in the nearby hills and swam in the villa's saltwater pool under the stars. When the reservation ended, he didn't go back to the city. He moved. To a new town. A new apartment. A new life. He rented a loft with high ceilings and wide windows that caught the morning sun. He filled it with books and art, things that made him feel alive. He adopted a dog from a shelter, a quiet, watchful husky named Theo, who didn't beg or bark, just followed him from room to room with calm loyalty. His co-workers noticed the change. He was more focused, less anxious, more creative. One even said, "You seem lighter." Jonas smiled. "I finally took out the trash." They didn't get it. But that was fine. They didn't have to. The messages stopped. The calls faded. Silence returned. Real silence. Until one day, 2 months later, an email came through. He almost deleted it on instinct. Subject: "I'm sorry." His mother. He stared at the screen for a long time. Not sure whether to open it. But he did. Jonas. "I don't know if you'll ever speak to us again. I don't blame you if you don't. But I wanted to write this anyway. I regret everything. We were wrong. I was wrong. Your father. He'll never say it, but he knows it too. He just doesn't know how to say it. We took you for granted. We saw your success and assumed you'd never stop giving. We mocked the very thing that saved us from bills and debt. And worst of all, we never told you how proud we were. We thought you'd always be there. We thought there was nothing you wouldn't forgive. And now we know we pushed too far. I don't expect you to reply. I just hope, one day, you'll remember the version of us that tried. And not just the version that failed you. No matter what, I love you. Mom." Jonas didn't cry. He didn't smile, either. He just sat there, still, watching the cursor blink at the bottom of the message. She hadn't asked for money. Or a second chance. Or another favor. And for the first time in his life, he believed her regret might be real. But real regret doesn't demand a reply. He closed the email. Didn't delete it. Didn't respond. Just closed it. Then he got up, whistled for Theo, and walked out the front door into the morning sun. No noise. No debt. No expectations. Just a man. A dog. And a life that finally, belonged to him. It was a quiet Thursday morning when the knock came. Jonas was halfway through organizing the books in his new loft, Theo lounging on the rug nearby, tail lazily thumping, when the sound echoed through the apartment like a ripple across still water. 3 short knocks. Then silence. Jonas froze. He wasn't expecting a delivery. No visitors planned. He hadn't given anyone this address outside of a handful of colleagues and his lawyer. Which left only one unsettling possibility. He walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. His stomach tightened. There, standing just outside, was his father. Not a hallucination. Not a dream. Gregory Hayes, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, and as immovable-looking as ever, stood with his arms crossed, dressed in his typical denim jacket and work boots, a man who looked like he belonged more on a construction site than a city block. Jonas didn't open the door. He waited. Another knock. "Jonas," came the voice, gravelly, quiet. "I just want to talk." Jonas took a slow breath, then cracked the door just enough to see his father's eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't sharp. They were tired. "Not interested," Jonas said through the crack. "Please," Gregory said. "Just 5 minutes." Jonas considered slamming the door. Walking away. But something in his father's posture held him in place. A weariness he hadn't seen before. Not the frustration of a man who wasn't getting his way, but the slow, sinking heaviness of someone who'd realized he'd lost more than control. He opened the door halfway and gestured toward the park across the street. "We'll walk," Jonas said. "Outside." They walked in silence for nearly 2 minutes, the sound of passing cars and birdsong filling the space between them. Jonas kept his arms folded. His father walked slowly, hands in his jacket pockets. I didn't know where else to find you, Gregory finally said. Noticed, Jonas replied. I didn't come to fight, he added. Jonas shot him a look. You sure? Because last time we talked, you threatened me and tried to call my boss. His father winced. Yeah. That was not my finest moment. Jonas said nothing. I've been thinking a lot, Gregory continued. About everything. About you. About what I said. And what you didn't say. That made his father stop. He turned, slowly. Like what? Jonas shrugged. Like the fact that in 30 years, you've never once said you were proud of me. Not when I started my business. Not when I made my first million. Not when I bought that house for Grandma. I didn't know how, Gregory admitted after a long pause. That's a pathetic excuse. I know. They walked again. Slowly. You were always different, Gregory said. Not like me. Or your uncles. You were quiet. Sharp. Thoughtful. I didn't know how to talk to you, so I made fun of it. I thought tough love would push you forward. It didn't. It just made me feel alone. I see that now. They stopped at a bench shaded beneath a massive oak. Jonas hesitated, then sat. His father followed. I wanted to provide for the family, Gregory said quietly. And when you started earning more than I ever did, I guess. It made me feel like I'd failed somehow. Like I wasn't needed anymore. So instead of being proud, I got defensive. Jonas watched a squirrel dart across the grass. He didn't reply. I thought, Gregory continued, that if we laughed at your job, it'd bring you down to our level. Keep things familiar. But that was wrong. You weren't above us. We were just small. Jonas turned toward him, finally. You used me. His father nodded. You mocked my work in front of strangers, then handed them drinks I paid for. Nod. You never defended me. You never even asked if I was okay when I was breaking under stress. All you ever said was, it's just money. Like I owed you everything. I know. And after all that, you tried to sabotage my job. You tried to take the one thing I had earned without your help. I was scared, Gregory admitted. When your mother told me what you'd done, canceling the villa. I panicked. I thought you were losing it. That you were cutting yourself off. I was, Jonas said. From you. Not from life. His father looked away, shame dragging his shoulders down. You're right. The silence stretched between them, long and weighty. Jonas finally asked, why now? Gregory blinked. What? Why are you here now? Why this morning? Why at all? His father pulled a folded letter from his coat pocket and handed it over. Jonas opened it. His mother's handwriting. A printed copy of the same email she'd sent weeks ago. Only this time, there was a handwritten note at the bottom in blue ink. He wants to say it himself. I told him you wouldn't listen. But he insisted. Jonas folded the letter and set it beside him. Mom says you're different now, he said. But I'm not looking for a different dad. I'm not looking for one at all. Gregory exhaled through his nose. I understand. I'm not ready to forgive, Jonas continued. And I don't know if I ever will. But I appreciate that you showed up. And that, for once, you didn't come to take something. His father nodded slowly, rising from the bench. Can I say one last thing? Jonas gave a cautious nod. Gregory looked him in the eye. I am proud of you. Not because you're rich. Or smart. But because you held your ground. You became your own man. Something I wasn't strong enough to be when it mattered. Jonas said nothing. His father stepped back, hands in his pockets. I'll go now, he said. Jonas watched him walk away, fading into the crowd of joggers and parents with strollers. He stayed on the bench, staring at the space where his father had been. He didn't cry. He didn't chase after him. But for the first time in years, his chest felt lighter. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a door that needed to be opened. Maybe it was a window, cracked just slightly to let the air back in. Jonas picked up the folded letter, held it in his hand, and walked home. Theo greeted him at the door. He poured a glass of water, fed the dog, and sat down at his desk, opening his laptop to a blank page. Then he began to write, not for them. For himself. The days that followed were uneventful in the most beautiful way. Jonas woke up when he pleased. He cooked breakfast at his own pace, sometimes just toast and coffee, sometimes a full plate with eggs, avocado, roasted tomatoes. He walked Theo through the early streets, the dog padding silently beside him, occasionally pausing to sniff at the world. No chaos. No sudden phone calls. No expectations. Just quiet. And Jonas had learned to love the quiet. Not the silence of guilt. Not the strained stillness that came when his parents used to ignore him across dinner tables or shrug off his achievements. This was earned silence. Chosen. A silence that came not from suppression, but from sovereignty. He had started writing again. Nothing structured. Just free thought. He'd never kept a journal before, but now he filled pages with ideas, reflections, little moments he never used to have time for. One morning, he wrote something he kept staring at for nearly an hour. Sometimes the most powerful legacy is the one you don't inherit. He underlined it twice. Because it was true. His family had always equated love with control. Obligation. Obedience. They gave him shelter, then built a cage around it. Gave him food, then served it with side dishes of guilt and shame. They said they raised him, but really, they watched him grow in spite of them. Now, alone in a home of his own choosing, surrounded only by peace and a husky who didn't care how much he made, Jonas realized something important. He wasn't broken. He wasn't cold. He was free. It had been 3 months since the last contact with his mother's email. Jonas hadn't replied. He didn't feel cruel. He just felt finished. The version of his parents who showed up now, filled with remorse, seeking redemption, weren't the same ones who had mocked him in public, who had dismissed his work as button-clicking, who had tried to torpedo his job because he dared to say no. And while forgiveness might one day be on the table, access was not. Not anymore. He had set a boundary. He had finally enforced it. And it had stuck. That was his legacy now. Not their legacy of entitlement and inheritance and transactional affection. Not their belief that parents were owed eternal servitude just because they provided diapers and dinners. He would not pass that down. Not to anyone. One quiet afternoon, Jonas sat in a sunny corner of a local cafe, typing notes into his tablet. Across the table sat Kara, a writer he'd met through a mutual friend. She was warm, curious, sharp. They'd started collaborating on a small project, building a web platform for independent authors. Nothing too big. Nothing high pressure. But meaningful. She leaned over the table, pointing at his notebook. "That quote," she said, "about not inheriting a legacy. Did you write that?" He nodded. She smiled. "That's powerful." He looked at her for a long moment, considering. Then he said, "My parents used to think success was something you passed down, like a crown or a title. I thought so too. But I realized. What you don't carry forward is just as important." She nodded slowly, letting it sit between them. "You cut them off?" He hesitated. Then, "Yeah. I did." "And?" she asked, not judgmental, just curious. "I'm still standing," he said. "Actually, I'm standing taller." She smiled again. "Then maybe that's your inheritance. Self-respect." He blinked, letting her words settle. She was right. That night, as he walked home, wind brushing against his coat, Jonas passed a bookstore. In the window was a quote painted in looping script. "The past is a place of reference, not residence." He stopped, stared at it. Then he pulled out his phone and took a photo. He didn't send it to anyone. But he saved it. Just for himself. On the 6-month anniversary of the Ashpine trip, Jonas did something small but symbolic. He went to his closet and pulled out a dusty wooden box labeled family. Inside were old photos. Childhood birthday cards. Letters. His father's business card from 1995. A photo of the three of them at some cheap beach rental, his father shirtless with a beer, his mother in oversized sunglasses, and Jonas, barely 9, holding a plastic shovel, caught mid-laugh. He looked at it for a while. Then, carefully, he removed one item, the letter his mother had written. He tucked it into a smaller envelope. Wrote on the front. "Read when ready." Then he resealed the rest of the box and slid it onto a higher shelf, away from reach, but not destroyed. Because healing wasn't always about closure. Sometimes, it was just about choosing when and how to revisit the things that shaped you. A week later, he received a text from an unknown number. "Your father's turning 65 this month. We're throwing a dinner. You're welcome, if you want. Cousin Alan." Jonas stared at it. The choice was his. No one was forcing him. No one was guilting him. Just an open door, with no expectations. He deleted the message. Not with anger. Not with malice. Just with peace. Because he wasn't that boy anymore. The one begging for acceptance. The one building mansions of generosity just to get crumbs of love. He was Jonas Hayes. Builder of his own life. Author of his own future. And some legacies? They were better left behind. Final lines. That night, Jonas sat on the balcony of his new home, Theo curled beside him, a cup of tea cooling in his hand. The city pulsed quietly below. His future stretched ahead, unwritten, untouched, his alone. And somewhere far behind him, the noise faded for good. He didn't need to reply. He didn't need to return. He had already arrived.